Welcome to the Rational Optimist Podcast, coming to you from a hotel, 2 hotel rooms actually, in El Segundo, California.
We're usually thousands of miles away. Today we're separated by 2 floors of hotel rooms. Amazing to be here. We're at the ground zero for America's atoms, America's hard tech renaissance. Quite amazing what we've seen here over the past few days, right?
Yeah, I wish we could be in the same hotel room, but we couldn't figure out the mics. We're not tech guys. Most exciting thing you've seen this week that you're allowed to talk about, because some stuff we're not allowed to talk about.
Lots of NDAs, lots of hey, do you have ITAR clearance? You can't get in here. I think you should not be allowed in the city limits unless you have some top secret clearance. Most exciting thing I've seen this week. Those self-replicating robots, the early versions are pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I can't wait to see those progress. So the thesis, that company, I don't think that company has a name yet, but the guy we met told us the thesis behind his company is that we want to get to Mars, we want to build on Mars, we want to colonize Mars, right? But we're not going to send a whole bunch of humans up there to build with hammers and nails, obviously. Like, if we're going to actually realize that dream, we're going to need robots that build other robots that then build stuff. And he showed us a prototype that looked like a gigantic spider that can build more gigantic spiders and build stuff on Mars, hopefully one day.
Yeah, it was amazing that he basically thought through the problem of hey, we're going to get to Mars. Hey, you're going to build stuff on the moon. Okay, well, what happens when you get there? These current solutions don't work. So it was pretty amazing, and it almost felt like meeting Zuckerberg in his, dorm room when he was building Facebook or something like that. But that times 100 level of complexity.
Yeah, took me on a little bit of an emotional roller coaster too this trip, because we met with a lot of industrial defense tech firms. And the ones that are involved in drone warfare and electronic warfare, it's mostly bad news. Well, it's they're fixing it, but it's mostly America's behind, basically, way behind in drones and maybe a little bit behind electronic warfare. And then we met with companies that are making next generation missile defense and like big exploding things, basically. And America's still way ahead there to hear them tell it. So it's a good mixture of stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I was up in San Francisco before this as well, meeting with people, but there's drones. And yesterday, we saw a nuclear reactor, a space factory. We got on a robo-taxi and we saw self-replicating robots. And today I'm going to see a company that builds space buses and builds machines that turn basically sunlight into oil and gas. So there's tons of amazing stuff going on here, and it's pretty incredible. Just talk to me, what's your vibes on Gundo? What do you think since we've got here?
Gundo's awesome. Feels like it teleported 15 years into the future. Granted, I live in Vermont, which is 15 years in the past, so it's probably
50 years.
50 years in the past. But it's cool. I was walking down the street and there was a drone flying over my head. You walk down the street in Gundo and there's people who build rockets and people who work on cyber defense. And it's just it's a community of people building hard tech. And I've never been in a place like this before. It's
quite amazing that we're, 15 minutes, 20 minutes away from America's second largest metropolitan area. And it feels like small town America. Lots of well-kept houses, lots of American flags. We went on a run yesterday and there was Easter baskets and Easter bunnies sitting outside the houses. Pretty cool. And I think if Silicon Valley was the most important place from an investment perspective and just culturally over the past 20 years, because software was the thing, the thing that made money, the thing that pulled all the top talent in, I think LA and specifically El Segundo is going to be the most important place over the next 20 years, just because of all the stuff being built here.
Young people driving this, huh? Makes me feel old.
Right. The kids these days is usually, you say that when you want to, it's like a derogatory term almost. You're saying, oh man, we're screwed, because the kids, they're just on their phones all the time, and they're, depressed and things like that. The 23, 24-year-olds that we've met here are basically standing up and very much, I'm not going to take what's happening to America. And if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. So I'm basically, it's like on a mission to make America, to reindustrialize America, and make it better than ever.
So I'm not going to take what's happening to America. Explain what they mean by that. What is happening to America?
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about just from a pure innovation point of view, the last 50 years has really been the growth of digital technologies. But if you look in all the physical world, obviously the manufacturing base has been hollowed out. We haven't, we've built more, or we've closed more nuclear power plants than we've shut down this century. We haven't built a major airport in 30 years. It's impossible to build physical infrastructure. There's all these type of things. We're behind in drones, so on and so forth. And these guys in all the different areas, they're standing up and they're going after very specific problems in these areas. So that's what I'd say about that. And obviously there's you made a great point about and many people have mentioned it to us, that the separation of the manufacturing and the design of things, and they're basically trying to bring that back.
Yeah. So Apple, as an example, in 2012, was it? You were telling me yesterday, in 2012, Apple and Foxconn, which is the Chinese company that actually manufactures the iPhones, had the same market cap of $100 billion in 2012. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was 2011. Yeah.
2011. And Apple's market cap, and ergo its stock price, has 30x since then. And Foxconn's market cap hasn't moved at all. And that's sort of a microcosm of what's happened in America and globally, is that the American companies, they take on the finance and the management and the design and the so-called higher in the value chain stuff, and then outshore all the actual hard making physical stuff to other countries, which is great for stock prices. It's really great for margins. But eventually the chickens come home to roost and we wake up and we forget how to make stuff.
Yeah, and this is exactly what we wrote about in WTF happened in 2024. The big long piece that we wrote to kick off the year. It's kind of like, yeah, it's been great for stock prices, but okay, you shipped off the manufacturing jobs, and if you just look at the amount of revenue per employee of the largest company in 1970, IBM, versus Apple today, revenue per employee for Apple is just so much larger. And basically, that's like an example of how, sure, America overall has got much richer, but in many, many ways, those gains haven't flowed down to as many people. And I think we've reached peak SaaS, we've reached peak offshoring and all those type of things. And it feels like there's something quite amazing happening here. And there's, for the longest time, people have talked about this, but they haven't had concrete plans in place to do anything about it. The guys we met from Rangeview, which are essentially trying to revolutionize how stuff is made in America. They have a concrete. They're like definite optimists, right? They was like, hey, there's this problem, and we're going to go solve it. And the only way we solve it is to be 10x, 100x better than anywhere else in the world that does this stuff. So it's a very concrete plan.
Let's talk about defense tech in particular. So one of the companies we visited was called CX2. And their mission is to secure spectrum dominance for America on the battlefield. It basically means, so the founder looked at what was going on in Ukraine, and drone warfare just dominates. And drone warfare only works if you can control your drones and deny your enemy controlling their own drones and that kind of stuff. And he noticed that America was behind in this stuff, founded CX2 with a mission to put it ahead.
Yeah, so it's quite amazing that you think about all these expensive missiles and tanks and stuff like that. But there's this, land, sea, air, whatever, all the battlefields. The new battlefield, arguably the most important one, is the electronic battlefield. Because all these incredibly expensive and exquisite defense systems, they all rely on GPS and communications and stuff like that to work. Like a precision missile, yeah, you said it. Or you target, hey, hit this specific building. But if you jam the communication to that, the missile basically won't do what it's going to do. Same with drones. You control the drone and you see it, but if someone knocks the signal out to the drone, it just literally falls out of the sky. So CX2, yeah, was basically founded to, as you said, give America spectrum dominance. And I'm just fascinated by the idea of electronic warfare being a new battlefield, the most important battlefield, yet an invisible one. And I think it's something a lot of people don't know about yet.
Yeah, this is such an issue in the war in Ukraine that Russia can scramble Ukraine's drones, Ukraine can scramble Russia's drones. In some cases, they have resorted to drones, tethered drones. They literally have a cord on them, which defeats a lot of the purpose of having a drone in the first place, right? So it's like, and this, it's just moving so fast. It's war. So Ukraine is iterating very fast. Nothing motivates you like being in war. And if you don't succeed, you'll lose the war, which has put them very far ahead of anyone else in drone technology.
Yeah. I mean, they produced 2 million drones or something like that last year. And what's going on is that, over here you're used to, okay, let's design this new type of drone. It's going to take a year. Over there, it's like, it's less than, Nathan told us it's less than 30 days. So it's kind of like, oh, hey, our enemy has this new capability. Within 30 days, we've matched the capability and we've bettered it.
So CX2 had a nice office, but a lot of the defense tech places we've visited are in like garages or basements or warehouses. So it's very striking visiting El Segundo. You come in from the airport and you see the gleaming towers and they say Boeing or Raytheon or Lockheed Martin at the top. And then you visit the startup founders who are working on technologies that those defense primes have fallen behind on, arguably, and they're upstarts, they're in warehouses, they are mattresses on the floor because they sleep there. They're so dedicated to their work. So it's an interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah, and just talk about how important SpaceX has been to all this, because El Segundo didn't just come out of nowhere. It's where SpaceX got started, 20 plus years ago now. And, one of the points that people made to us was that SpaceX took a lot of the top talent from the Lockheed Martins and the Boeings and the Raytheons and the Northrop Grummans. And over the past 20 years, maybe America's best and brightest have been in school. They've gone to the SpaceX school and they've learned so much. They've worked so hard. And now that SpaceX is like a farm for all these little innovative startups. Like how many places did we go that someone didn't intern at SpaceX or didn't work at SpaceX? It was like it was a true line for the whole trip.
Yeah. And it's not just space companies too. It's like the defense companies all had at least one person from SpaceX, probably the nuclear companies too. It's just like the PayPal mafia back in the day, where all the people who worked on PayPal graduated to found their own startups and many of them were successful. That has restarted anew, but it's the SpaceX mafia.
SpaceX mafia is here. Watch out. I think the SpaceX mafia, so SpaceX is currently valued at $350 billion. I'm pretty sure the SpaceX mafia is going to create way more value than SpaceX alone. Because it's basically thousands of people that did really well at SpaceX, but now they're building manufacturing in space and hypersonic jet planes and so much more.
I was surprised at how patriotic it feels around here. You don't think California and patriotic don't really go together in the same sentence, but every place we visited without fail had an American flag on the wall, and many of them, it seemed like they were competing to have the biggest American flag, and many of them were gargantuan. And the winner for the biggest flag was Valor Atomics.
Yeah, for sure. It was quite amazing. I think we saw the smallest American flag and the and the largest one back to back. But yeah, it's incredibly patriotic. They're mission driven. As I said earlier, it's kind of like, I believe in America. I want to make this country great for my kids, and if I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. Very mission driven. Honestly, a nice break from like the SaaS and the B2B software and stuff like that has been great. It's created a lot of money for people. It's been a productivity tool, but now we're on about building nuclear reactors and building stuff on Mars and all these type of things that honestly just matter a lot more.
Yeah. You ask these founders what motivates them, and most of them, it always came back to they love solving hard problems, and they wanted the hardest problem to solve. So they chose hard tech, where the problems are very hard and very expensive, and you don't always have too many opportunities to like fail a test because it costs a lot of money. Like an exploding rocket launch, for example, like you got to get it right. And rocket launches in particular, they say, and it's true, there's 100,000 things that can go wrong, but there's only one way for it to go right.
And everything has to go right at exactly the same time. I mean, it's just quite amazing. You walk around here, and maybe in most cities you're used to maybe one like aerospace defense company being there, maybe one. You walk around. I just went for coffee this morning. One guy has a Boeing jacket on, one guy has a Lockheed Martin jacket on. You're walking around the town, just like, wow, there's an aerospace company. You know what I mean? It really is ground zero. And I think people have talked so much about network effects and being close to, people building stuff in Silicon Valley. The network effects here for aerospace and defense and hard technologies and real world innovation. I don't think there's any place in America or on Earth that has a higher density of that than El Segundo.
No, me neither. You know what else is interesting? So where our day jobs are in investing, and probably spend a little bit too much time around finance people. So the tariffs things are going on right now. It was announced yesterday, or it was announced 2 days ago after market close, and the market's just absolutely melting down. And being on financial Twitter and just talking to financial people, the tariffs basically have a 100% disapproval rating. Everybody thinks they're a terrible, stupid, destructive idea, and everybody in finance thinks that. And the hard tech founders, many of them, don't think that.
Right. Very, very pro reindustrializing America. Yeah, uniform across the board. They were really, really pro tariffs. But
I don't know. You think they were pro tariffs? I think they're pro reindustrializing America, and some of them were like, okay to entertain the idea that tariffs might help. I don't know if I'd characterize them as pro tariff.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I think if you asked a lot of people, they would have said, yeah.
If you give them a few drinks, yeah.
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah. Let's talk about nuclear a little bit. So yesterday afternoon, we got to visit Valor Atomics, which was one of our coolest site visits. We got to stand in front of a new generation small nuclear reactor. It was about the size of a school bus, but squished, like it was wider, but not quite as long as a school bus. And there's a control center in the back where a person sits and can monitor the activity of the nuclear reactor. And the vision of Isaiah, the guy who founded Valor Atomics, is to put 1,000 of these things all in one place to build a giant power generating center. And then you can continue with what he wants to do with that power.
Man, that control room blew my mind, because if you've seen the documentary Chernobyl or just seen pictures of nuclear control rooms in real life, they are huge, and they have all these, old school knobs and buttons and everything, and it's just so archaic. That thing looked like the most exciting gaming studio or something like that. It was beautiful, and that's one of the points he made. It's very important to make the technology sexy and like, oh my god, I want one of those. Nobody ever says that about a nuclear power plant today. The reactor we saw yesterday, I want one of those. So really, what he was saying was interesting, because the whole small modular reactor movement in nuclear, that seems to be like the most exciting thing happening. Whereas Isaiah was like, actually, there's some really big flaws. So the problem with nuclear over the past, he made the point that it's nuclear power today costs 10x more, 15x more than it did in the 60s or 70s. Nothing's changed about the physics. Everything's changed about the policy. And one of the biggest things is that it's driven up, regulation, over-regulation has driven up indirect costs. The things you have to do to get the land and the sites ready around your nuclear power plant. Well, in fact, if you're going to build one small modular reactor, you still have to go through all the same regulatory hurdles and all the costs of developing that one site, whether it's a huge reactor or a small one. So in one way, SMRs exacerbate the problem that nuclear has today. His vision, as you said, is to really, make the reactors small, but put 1,000 of them in one area, and not just to produce electricity, but actually use these things to produce oil and gas, which was quite the vision.
Yeah, because they call it a gigasite. 1,000 of these things all producing power at the same time. It produces so much power it can't be used by the grid. It's even too much power to be absorbed by a data center, which tells you all you need to know about all the power it produces. And so the only way to store that, the only efficient way to store that, batteries are nowhere near good enough yet, is to make synthetic hydrocarbons out of it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. It's incredible. And you think about, so today you drill for oil and gas and it's dirty and all these things, but what if you could just produce it nuclear power? It's like, it's much cleaner, right? It's instead of having a dirty oil well, you pull the stuff out of the air, essentially.
Yeah. So it's importantly, it's carbon neutral. It pulls it out of the air and then, yeah.
Right. And again, one of the points he made is that, yeah, it's kind of like the separation of design and manufacturing. That was a key point he made, and we're trying to bring that back. Another point he made, which we know all too well, but it was great to hear directly from a founder, is that regulations are the number one holdup. So, he had the reactors ready to go, okay, but he couldn't put uranium in it because it would just take years and years and years to do. So they're actually building a test site in the Philippines. And it's pretty sad that he had to go all the way, whatever it is, a 20-hour flight away to develop this or show off this amazing technology. His goal is to do it in America, and I think he's going to be successful, but pretty incredible that the regulations hold this stuff up.
Yeah, man. Here's this super driven guy who extremely pro-America, wants to build power generation through nuclear for America, and he's got to go to the Philippines. That's all you need to know about how messed up the regulations are here.
Yeah, incredible. And I mean, the technology he showed us was pretty magical. The actual Ward Zero reactor has 7 moving parts, which, I mean, if you told me anything has 7 moving parts, I'd be like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I think an electric or an internal combustion engine has 2,000 parts. EV engine has 20. So, and this thing has 7. Like, the engineering and just the work that's gone into this is pretty incredible. And yeah, it's sad that it might be a case where you can't deploy this stuff in America for 5 or 10 years, and like other countries have it.
Yeah, he said he spends more time these days talking to the government and trying to get them to change things than actually building.
Think about the brain, like the brain cycles that just uses up. Like, it's hard enough developing nuclear technology. And now if you have to spend half of your time talking to convincing bureaucrats it's good, man, that's just such a loss for America and the world.
All right, I have a flight to catch here in a couple of minutes, but is there anything you want to touch on before we go, or do you have a dose of optimism today?
Dose of optimism is being here at ground zero. I think people are going to, ground zero for America's Adams Renaissance. I think a lot of people are going to miss it. I think you should come and check it out. Another key theme just before we go is that in so many areas, America is focused on big, exquisite systems that cost a lot of money. They're huge. They take so long to manufacture. Now in all these areas, in drones, in nuclear technology, electronic warfare, even I met with the guys from Astromechanic up in San Francisco a few days ago. You're going small, nimble, cheap across all these areas. And I think that's a huge, huge change, and it's going to create many winners. So I think that's another thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens around here. We gotta make sure we come back and visit. I think within 5-10 years, it's going to be obvious that this is the new center for the new industrial revolution.
You told me, a proper condo here, 3-bed condo here is like 1.3 million. I was like, oh man, that's expensive. That could be like double or triple in 10 years if this place takes off. Maybe it's maybe the actionable thing to leave readers with is buy El Segundo property.
All right, viewers, you can help our channel grow by pressing the like or subscribe button. We appreciate all your support. It helps our channel grow, and we'll talk to you next week.